Welcome, movie lovers, to Flix List here on WHYR LP 96.9 FM, Baton Rouge Community Radio. I'm DJ Clay.
I'm Chewy.
And I'm RCL.
We are here to guide you through a half hour of movie lovers' paradise.
First, I'm actually curious, what does LP mean? You say it every time.
Low power.
Low power.
We are
low
officially, according to the FCC license, a low-power radio station.
Oh, all right. Okay.
Which just means that we really, whereas some other radio stations reach from here to Donaldsonville, we are servicing the community of Baton Rouge.
Right.
It's actually a positive. It brings people together. It's a good thing.
If you're listening to my voice right now, you are a part of our community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just like size doesn't matter, right?
Well, all right. So we're still in the middle of trying to rename our show. We're called Flixless right now, but we don't like that name.
No.
Yeah, no.
I'm not gonna bore you. I'm not gonna make your ears bleed with my ranting. We all know I don't like it.
But we've opened it up to the listening public, and this week, for the first time, we have a much simpler to remember email address you can get to us. If you would like to help us rename the show, please email us at
Drum roll, please.
movies@whyr.org.
Oh, isn't that so much simpler?
I don't even have to spell that. You know how to spell movies, plural, movies@whyr.org.
Should we spell it for him just in case?
I would not dare insult our listeners.
Now, just a reminder, the prizes for picking our new name will be a spoken love letter from Chewy himself, who's a great writer.
Fantastic writer.
Yeah.
I'm blushing.
That's for both males and females.
Absolutely.
He doesn't discriminate.
No. I like the ladies, but
as long as love letters go, come on.
Yeah.
Right. The other thing is you will get to come down to the studio and actually announce our new name yourself, and then review any sort of movie you may choose.
Yeah, we'll all talk about your favorite movie. We like talking about movies. Tell us your favorite. We'll talk about it. We'll do a show with you.
Yeah.
Or your least favorite, or whatever one strikes your fancy at the time. You choose, we do's. That was horrible.
That was awesome. That was awesome.
I love excuses for us to not work.
All right, guys. So I've got to say, I'm touched to the cockles of my heart right now. I'm touched.
Can you say cockles on the radio?
Of course you can. Just like ventricles. Now, there's this lady, this lovely, lovely lady. Guess where she lives?
Where does she live, Chewy?
She lives in Minnesota.
Oh.
That's far away.
It's far away. But guess what she just did?
What did she just do?
She listened to our show.
We have a listener?
We have a listener. And she wrote in telling us how great we are.
Okay.
That's pretty spectacular.
That's
great.
awesome.
She's a very lovely lady, and she was so kind. We were just hate bashing a movie last week, and she missed the name of the movie, but wanted to know so badly what it was that she wrote in asking us what it was, telling us that she really enjoyed the radio station as a whole here. We've conversed back and forth a little bit. She's very excited to listen to the movie, and I'm very excited to
watch the movie.
Well, to hear back
I guess
from her.
she could also listen
I
to
guess
the
she
movie.
could.
Yeah, to watch it. But we're excited to hear back from her
Yes.
about what she thinks, because we try to do generally positive reviews, and she caught us. I mean, she doesn't even live here. She's driving through Baton Rouge, caught our show.
Doing the
during
one negative review.
This horrible review. Hate bashing is the only thing it could be called.
Right. We gave that movie 0 stars.
0.
And if any of you want to know, just to save us some emails, the movie was called Good Dick. And it's an independent Netflix instant watchable, but we don't suggest it.
No.
So do you guys want to do some movies that we do suggest?
Of course.
Of course.
All right.
How about a movie that stands the test of time? From my childhood to my adulthood.
All 15 years?
Are you talking about the one and only Airheads?
I indeed am.
Do you have the stats there for it?
1994. Brendan Fraser, Adam Sandler, Steve Buscemi, pure awesomeness.
All-star cast.
Chris Farley also.
He has a smaller part.
He was back when he was doing bit parts.
So yeah, this movie was released in 94. I saw it probably a few years after that on Comedy Central. And being a young, impressionable mind, I loved it to death. I saw it like a dozen times. and I just loved it every single time. But I was a little worried. I was very excited to see it was on the instant queue, but I was worried that it wouldn't.
Would your adult self love this movie as much as your young self did?
Absolutely. And the answer, my boys, arms around shoulders, it's a resounding yes.
That's awesome. Because honestly, I mean, I if you make a movie about rock and roll, you have at least one guy who's going to go see it. That's me. I will go see your movie if it's about being in a band. I'm not going to like it, necessarily. It's got to be good. But, all I remember is these wonderful thoughts of, like, taking over a radio station.
Yeah.
I'm a DJ now, of course this movie appeals to me.
Yeah.
It's so nice to hear.
3 guys taking over a radio station. I wonder why we find that interesting.
So here's why I like it, because I feel like I need to defend my position. I think it's an awesome movie. I think it completely succeeds. As we were saying last week, Roger Ebert, he rates movies based not on how objectively great they were, but on whether or not they achieved what they were going for. What was the movie supposed to be, and how close on the mark was it? Because of that, I think this movie is very close to the mark. It had, let's say, it had very clear plot points, and I think RCL agrees there.
And most importantly, if you're going to do a fun, slappy comedy, those plot points that we're always hammering home, we'll complain about a movie if it doesn't have them. It's so important because really all you're doing is wrapping laughs around this frail little skeleton of plot point. The script for these comedies, I think they talk about Ghostbusters was notoriously bad about this, but there was almost no script at all. They just basically said, these couple of things happen, but ultimately it's up to the actors wrapping funny around these plot points. So the comedy has to stand up to that.
And not only that, what I loved about Airheads was that the things that were funny and random and the little side stories weren't just for being funny and random and little side stories. They came back in to help the story along. They were plot devices. They totally
deepened our understanding of the characters in the world
while still being funny.
All the characters were very, well, I can't say all because there were very minor characters that you only see one side of them, but all of the characters that had a significant role in the movie were multidimensional.
No, you totally feel like you know all these people, especially the 3 band members.
Which is funny because, I don't think of Brendan Fraser as a particularly fabulous actor. I don't think of Adam Sandler, while a great comedian, I don't think of him as a particularly fabulous actor. I think we all know Steve Buscemi is wonderful, but he's a great character actor. It's really bizarre that they were able to pull this off with these guys who just kind of do light comedy.
Yeah.
I'll disagree with you about the Adam Sandler thing. I think that he's very much come into his own, especially with things like Punch Drunk Love. And,
not back then, no. Yeah, but
no,
absolutely
certainly not
has
back
come.
then.
I totally agree. It's come
right,
into
not back then.
So, in conclusion, do you have anything else to say? It sounds to me like we're just all really thrilled that this movie that we loved as children, you can go back to.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can go home.
Yeah. The only other thing that I want to say is that a lot of movies like this, they'll throw in random occurrences to further the plot that they already have predetermined, and therefore it won't completely fit. For example, I watched a Lifetime movie last night.
Ouch, I'm so sorry.
I know, I'm sorry too.
Was your TV broken?
Well, basically this guy, he's a murderer. Of course, he kills women, as all Lifetime movies tend to go. And
Meredith Baxter Birney in beaten with a rod.
Basically, they
Sorry.
Basically, they wind up arresting this guy on non-related charges, and they admit themselves that they did not find any evidence against him. But then a woman picks him in a lineup, and the movie ends. Basically, it's like, yay, victory. He's been picked in a lineup.
For something else?
For something else.
So the point you're trying to make here is that they did not do that.
They didn't do that in Airheads. A lot of times people will just throw in random things to accomplish what they want to accomplish. They'll say, okay, this guy's arrested, so end of movie.
But this plot builds on itself. The things that happen early in the movie matter later in the movie.
Absolutely.
That's fantastic.
So, what do we want to give this out of 5 stars?
I'll give it 3.5 out of 5.
I'll go with 4.
I will give you a very solid 4.
Wow, okay. So, we still love Airheads, I think is what we've discovered today. I'm so happy about
Yeah,
that.
me
Absolutely.
too.
It makes me happy that movie's still good.
Yeah.
Like, it survived film school for me. Like, now that I've seen Kurosawa, I still like Airheads. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So before we go into our next movie review, I kind of wanted to mention that I saw the movie that you suggested, We Live in Public, last.
Oh, yeah, that was a week or two ago, but
Right.
but We Live in Public got reviewed.
Right. I saw it a few days ago. Watched it. It was very difficult to watch.
Yeah, right? It's totally disturbing.
Now,
Right.
just to catch up the listeners, this was the movie that caused Clay's fiance to delete her Facebook account.
Huge deal.
Yeah,
Huge
which is
deal.
a huge deal.
And it's basically about social media and how we live in public.
Right. And so, well, I still have my Facebook, so it didn't cause me to do that, but I certainly see that
Yeah.
why it would
It caused
do
you
that.
to kind of rethink your Facebook.
It's certainly very difficult to sit through the whole thing because you watch what people will do to enjoy their 15 minutes of fame, but try to capture that 15 minutes of fame every day, which is what Facebook kind of is.
Absolutely.
Anyway, I just wanted to. We can move on. I don't want to review it or anything, but I just wanted to mention that I saw it, and it's certainly
You had a similar visceral reaction
absolutely.
to it then.
Yeah,
You know, I kind of I differ in my opinion that that's what Facebook is. I don't think that's what Facebook is, but this is not the time nor the place.
Wait
to
until
discuss
you
that.
see this movie, though. That's
Okay.
the problem. Is this documentary does a very, very good job of changing, and it's not about Facebook at all. This documentary is not about Facebook in any way. But this documentary does a very, very good job of exposing why we are the way we are publicly.
Okay, so basically, I am uneducated, and therefore my opinion is lacking.
right, exactly.
Fair enough.
so-
Very fair.
But no, good. I'm glad we did get a chance to mention it again. But the next movie that I'm going to review is The Living Wake, which was a 2007 independent film starring Michael O'Connell, Jesse Eisenberg, and Jim Gaffigan, directed by Saul Tryon. Would you say that any other way?
No, it looks,
Tryon.
looks pretty legit.
Sure. All right. Well, I'd like to open by saying this was one of the more bizarre movies I've ever seen.
Wow.
Our lead character, Roth Benu, is an eccentric artist who's never actually done any real art. Finds out he's going to die from a serious but as of yet unnamed disease. He decides to have a living wake and spends the movie inviting people to it.
A living wake.
A living wake is what happens when you know you're going to die and you have a wake, but you're there.
I
So
see.
the concept of the movie is obviously dark. It is fodder of a dark comedy. The first thing you're going to want to kind of be prepared about for this movie is it's got a language and dress of its own. So the movie seems to take place in modern time. There's nothing to tell you that it's not taking place in modern time, except that the dress and language of it is Victorian, in that everything is extremely formal. I'll do a quick impression of, oh my good man, we are gathered today to review some films. Excellent. Like that's the sort of cadence of the speech of the movie, which throws you for a loop because it's just a little low budget indie comedy. And it's sort of this grander, larger than life language and dress. While the film suffers a little bit from its episodic nature in that he goes from person to person trying to accomplish this task of inviting everybody to the wake, and he seems to have his own side task he's trying to accomplish with each person. So it's a little episodic. We forgive this really easily because each stop represents an aspect of his life. He has this feud with his neighbor. He's got something he wants his books that he's written to be in the library. So he goes to the library. He visits a hooker who that represents his sex life. But each one represents his life. So it represents his family life, his friendship life, his academic life, and his love life. And we get to know him best through his best friend, manservant, and biographer, Mills Joaquin, brilliantly played by Jesse Eisenberg. The two characters do nothing right, absolutely nothing. They range from mildly to straight up offensive in the way they handle life, and they have a delusion that is certified.
Now, are they relatable characters like Don Quixote? Like, yeah,
I will
delusional,
say no.
but-
I will say absolutely.
Okay.
What this sounds like to me is a sort of reimagining of Don Quixote.
Totally. I never thought of it that way. But Absolutely. It's very smart. There's lots of symbolism. At some point, they realize that the watch that they've been using to keep track of time all day, of course, he only has one day to live. So this watch is very important. Gets broken. They realize it's been broken and they don't know what time it is. So they find themselves in this watch repair shop. And he has this wonderful kind of diatribe on time. Oh, time. It's so oppressive. So it's sort of incredibly symbolic in that way. But the movie does a great job of making you like these two jackaninnies anyway.
Yeah.
And so
Nice
Jack
word, by the way.
well, my brain went through like 9 different words I'm not allowed to say first, and I landed on jackaninny. And the final thing I want to say about it, because I really recommend it if you're a lover of quirky independent movies. If you're a lover of blockbusters, don't worry about it. But if you seek out quirky independent movies, The Living Wake is a great one for you. But the last thing I want to say is that I actually didn't like it while watching it or directly after. But I loved it the next day.
You love the concept of it.
Right, like I watched it and I was like, this is all right. It's a little silly. The Victorian thing is too much for me. But the next day I woke up and went, that was an awesome movie. Like I totally got it the next day. So my suggestion is if you like indie comedies, to watch it, but let it sit with you for a little while.
See, the funny thing about that, you say that we just watched the trailer of it so I could get an idea of what it is that we're reviewing here.
Sure.
And after the trailer, I was floored. It looks like this movie is so far down my alley that I should put on a sackcloth and lament the fact that I did not watch this movie in time for this. It looks like it is probably going to be one of my top movies of last decade.
I think you're gonna love it. But it's right up your alley.
But
you're,
I like
you're
quirky
exactly the
indie
person
comedy
I'm
movies.
talking about who needs to go see this.
Cool.
The movie asks this very deep question, which is who's gonna be at your funeral.
Mm-hmm.
And it never asks you that question directly. It's just saying it asked you through this other guy's life.
Yeah.
But that was what I realized the next morning. Is I realized that I was thinking about my own mortality. I was
There you
thinking
go.
about my own funeral and who's going to be there. Both of you are invited. I haven't scheduled
thanks,
it yet or
buddy.
anything,
You haven't scheduled it
but I'm hoping it's going to be.
We've actually been discussing your wake.
Yeah.
I mean, let's just say there are plans in motion.
Oh,
yeah.
great.
Let's just say that when we go to the Night of the Living Dead Artists, which is coming up on October 14th,
Ooh, that's
you won't have to act so much.
You guys are jerks. I don't want to play anymore.
So RCL, what do you have for us? What's on the skittle? The skittle? I mean the skillet. What's on the skillet?
What's on the skittle?
And a little less.
What you got for us, Steve?
I have a movie called 2 Days. It's a 2003 film. It's independent. It stars Paul Rudd and Adam Scott. Paul Rudd plays a struggling actor in Los Angeles who has decided that in 2 days he is going to kill himself.
This is a morbid show we're doing
Yeah.
today, guys.
Right, yeah.
Ooh.
It's a
We
little
should have
bit.
just done a death theme.
In 2 days he's going to kill himself, and he wants a film crew to film it. So he hires 2 guys that he kind of knows that work in the film industry to come document his last 2 days on Earth. And dark hilarity ensues?
Question mark.
Question mark. Let me first start off by saying I felt like this movie was like the best sex you've ever had with a girl who's not very attractive and you don't get to finish.
I don't even know what to say.
What is it?
I'm trying to wrap my brain around the concept.
I want to go watch this movie just so I know what that is, what that means.
Well, good. Then I've accomplished my goal.
Fair enough. Okay, but with that description, are you suggesting I go watch this movie?
Yes.
It's a very drawn out yes there.
Oh my god. Okay. Well,
So, okay. What I mean by that is that I think this is probably some of the best acting I have ever seen. Paul Rudd, and Clay's giving me a weird face right now, but no, I'm very serious. Paul Rudd delivers a performance. I have seen people very much at least get nominated for Oscars, but probably even win Oscars
he's good. I mean,
with performances not as good as this.
wow.
He floored me with this performance. And the other performances in the movie were also very, very good. Probably not as good as that, but it is sort of he's the focus, so they don't get to really explore other characters as much. But it's absolutely some of the most amazing acting I've ever seen.
That's a bold statement. I mean, this is a very low budget little indie dark comedy.
Very much so.
All right.
That being said, I also thought the script itself, the writing was very good. It obviously came from a very heartfelt place. So that's kind of what I meant by the best you'd ever had.
Right.
However, it is a very low-budget indie comedy, and it's filmed through the perspective of three different types of cameras. You have the documentary camera, which shows you actually see this guy holding a camera on his shoulders, and every now and then you'll get to see that perspective. And then you have the real world camera, or not the camera that doesn't exist in
the movie camera.
The movie
right?
camera.
Nobody can turn to this camera and talk to it.
Exactly.
It's the fourth wall.
Exactly. And then they have two film students who are documenting the documentary with a third camera.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's a really cheap.
Layers.
Right.
Golly.
Now, the really
sounds like a fun props department.
the really cheap camera obviously looks like a really cheap camera whenever they go to that view. But the documentary camera and what I'll continue to call the real world movie camera look too similar at times to know which is which, and it's sometimes a little bit jarring and
So
confusing.
you needed like a visual cue to distinguish
Yeah,
these
I would
things.
have liked them to maybe shoot on like film or something for the
make it more obvious.
Right, make it very much more obvious. Color correct it in a different way.
Same way you don't want to name your characters like John and Jimmy and Jack. You want to name them Francois and Santiago and Clarence for easy distinguishability, right? Because that's basically exactly what we're
I'm
saying.
just gonna say yes, exactly like that. Pat you on the back 3 times and move on.
I'm glad I could help.
The other thing is that while I felt the script was very heartfelt, it did not have a very good ending. It was as if they had all these things they wanted to accomplish with bringing you through this emotional highs and lows, and then had no idea how to give you some sort of payoff.
Right. Interesting.
It's
Like you didn't get to finish.
It's like you didn't get to. Yeah,
It's
exactly.
almost as though the writer created this movie on the concept without figuring out the full
Right, where it's gonna go.
where it's gonna go
and things like that. And
he was more concerned on the ride than the
right, which I totally get. I mean, life is a journey and all those cliche things. But I did just spend an hour and a half. I kind of want to have some sort of resolution. There was a climax, denouement and all that, but there just was no real resolution. There wasn't. Now, why? What message are you trying to tell me, director?
Okay, here's the problem. I want to ask you whether or not the guy dies in the end. Obviously, this is not information you can give
Right,
away.
I can't give that away.
But I will say that, if he does die, that's a pretty quick ending, and maybe that's the problem. I mean, what is there after that, Like, he's dead.
everyone scratches their heads and parts ways.
Right, no, absolutely. But that is not. I cannot say either
that's
way.
not
But
the problem. All right, fair
no.
enough.
Yeah, and the truth is that I honestly, it was such a great ride that I don't know how I would have finished it either. But I think I would have spent another year writing it, trying to find a better ending. That being said, out of 5 stars, I would have initially up
We're
to
getting a two-parter.
we're getting probably pretty much a 3-parter
Okay,
here.
wow.
Up until the last 10 minutes of this movie, I probably would have given it 4.5 stars.
All right.
Oh,
right, well.
heavy
Yeah.
guns.
I know that's pretty big. Now the ending took it down a whole point.
Oh,
Golly.
Yeah. So
that's rough.
Yeah. So we're down to 3.5 now, and then the non-differential between the real-world camera and the documentary camera drops at another half point.
Oh, bringing
So-
down the hammer.
So while I think that the acting from Paul Rudd is a 5-star thing, and the story is very good, I will give it 3 stars.
There's just you basically what you're saying. There's just a couple of sort of unforgivable mistakes they make. Like if you're playing golf, when you hit that water, you got to have that penalty stroke,
exactly.
no matter what. There's no
Right.
taking that back. It's just a penalty.
Right. Exactly.
That's unfortunate for such a promising movie.
Absolutely. But I do suggest that both of y'all go watch it. It is available on your
interested.
Netflix Insta-Q.
All right, and to finish it off today, I think I'm going to do a classic, 1968's The Odd Couple.
Did you just have a British accent for about 3 seconds?
It was because I stumbled over a few words and I covered it by acting like I'm...
Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure I called you out on it.
Yeah.
Would you like your chimney sweep, sir?
Shut up. Odd Couple from 1968 stars Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau and is directed by Gene Saks. The movie tackles the subject of divorce in the 60s. After Felix Under gets kicked out of his house by his wife, he stays with his already divorced friend Oscar Madison. Felix is neurotically neat and Oscar is a slob. You know this plot. I mean, this was a stage play, this was a movie, this was
A famous television show that I'm
TV
sure
show.
everybody's seen on Naked Night.
This has been plowed into the ground. It has become cliche. It's so done. But that was the really amazing thing for me. When I watched this...
Usually it's overdone for a reason.
Right,
so.
right. I mean, but that was what blew me away. When I watched this, I laughed out loud. I could not get over how hysterically funny it was. I mean, truly, refreshingly, wholeheartedly funny.
Wow.
Lehman and Matthau carry the whole movie practically by themselves. There's a few scenes with, two English neighbors of his, with the two sisters that they're trying to woo, and then there's the poker buddies. But ultimately, this whole movie rests on two guys interacting in an apartment.
Impressive.
Right? So
For that to happen and to be fully engaging and wrap your attention, that's a feat.
it's incredible. And also, we live in an age of super fast, super zany types of comedy that's sort of off the wall, pothead humor, if you will, that's just random. What really amazed me was how enjoyable it was to watch a really talented comedy duo work out timing, work out their back and forth, work out the nuts and bolts of what makes comedy architecturally good, as opposed to just spitballing against walls. These two guys were perfect. They were on mark. They were joyfully funny, even with this really sad subject matter. It's incredible. You almost find yourself laughing at jokes after they're done, because they were so smart and so well timed.
I do think that's the mark of really good comedy, knowing that you can find humor in these life situations that even might have a little bittersweet
Or
aspect
sorrow,
to them, or
absolutely.
sorrowful altogether. Yeah, obviously, this isn't bittersweet; it's just sorrowful. So that's the mark of good comedy, and I do love some comedy these days. I love much random humor. As you know, I love Tim and Eric also show a great job. But don't scoff. But, it's a different type of humor, and it can be done in a way that doesn't require the type of talent that this does.
Right. No, absolutely. I mean, this is talent exposing a type of comedy.
Very cool.
So, what do you give it out of 5 stars?
4.5. I mean, it's practically a 5-star movie. I mean, I almost regret not giving it. But, I mean, 5-star movies we always say are perfect movies. So, I mean, easily a 4.5, though. I mean, this is a classic movie. It's shockingly, it's available on Netflix Instant. They usually keep the really good stuff for the mail. But this is one that slipped through.
Well, I'll make sure I check it out. All right, well, that's all the time we have for today. We want to remind you that we are still doing our competition for our name. So if you have any ideas besides Flix List to name our show, email us at movies@whyr.org.